the pain they deserve, how I found out my girlfriend was sleeping with my brother. I've always believed that loyalty is the foundation of any relationship, whether it's with your significant other or family. Loyalty is what keeps people together through the ups and downs, the arguments, the misunderstandings, everything. It's the glue that holds things together when things feel like they're falling apart. But what happens when the very people you trust most in the world, your girlfriend and your own brother, are the ones who betray you? What happens when you discover that the people you love the most have been sleeping together behind your back? This is my story, and it's a story of betrayal, anger, and pain. A kind of pain that I can't even describe. I've spoken to others about it, but I need to yell into the void now to tell my side because I'm at a breaking point, and I can't hold it in any longer. I haven't confronted them yet. They don't know that I know, but the weight of the betrayal is suffocating, and the anger inside me feels like a volcano ready to erupt. It all started a few months ago when I, 28M, first began noticing subtle changes in my girlfriend, Rachel, 27F. We'd been together for nearly 4 years. Things were going well, or at least I thought they were. We had the usual ups and downs, but I never suspected anything like this. My brother Luke, 31M, has always been a bit of a player, but he was family, and I trusted him. I trusted both of them. How naive I was. It began with Rachel being more secretive about her phone. She used to leave it out on the table, and we'd sometimes scroll through funny memes together or check the news, but over time I noticed her phone was glued to her hand. It was little things, like how she'd suddenly stop texting when I entered the room, or how she'd tilt her phone away from me if I tried to glance at it. I didn't think much of it at first. Everyone's entitled to their privacy, right? But it was the change in her behavior that unsettled me. We all need space. I get that. But this felt different. It was almost like she didn't want me to see something, like she was hiding something. I thought maybe she was planning something sweet, like a surprise for our upcoming anniversary. But deep down, I knew that wasn't it. One night while she was in the shower, her phone buzzed with a notification, and without thinking, I glanced at it. I froze when I saw Luke's name. It wasn't just the name that bothered me. It was the fact that it was a text that read, "Can't wait to see you again tomorrow." I stared at the message, my heart pounding in my chest, feeling like I had been kicked in the stomach. It could have been innocent, right? Maybe it was a joke, a misunderstanding. But I knew my brother and I knew Rachel, and there was nothing innocent about the tone of that message. Something was wrong. Very, very wrong. I confronted Rachel the next day, casually asking if she had seen Luke recently. She seemed startled by the question and quickly said, "Oh no, I haven't seen him in a while. Why?" It was a lie. I knew it was a lie, but I didn't let her know I had seen the text. I just nodded and smiled, pretending everything was fine. But inside, I was seething. From that point on, I started noticing the pattern. Rachel had been coming home later from work, claiming she had extra meetings or was catching up with friends. Luke, on the other hand, started canceling our usual hangouts. We used to grab beers together or watch the game, but suddenly he was always busy. It didn't take a genius to put 2 and 2 together. They were seeing each other behind my back, and neither of them had the guts to admit it. I needed proof. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe it was all in my head. I didn't want to confront them without being sure, so I started paying closer attention. I checked Rachel's phone when she was asleep, and there it was, a full conversation between her and Luke. It wasn't just flirting, it was graphic, explicit, and intimate in a way that made my stomach churn. They talked about the times they had been together, the places they had met up. They had been sleeping together for months. I read through the texts, my hands shaking, feeling more betrayed with every word. They didn't just talk about the sex, they talked about me. Luke was laughing behind my back, making jokes about how clueless I was, while Rachel played along, mocking my trust in her. The worst part? They seemed happy. They were thriving in their betrayal, while I was none the wiser. I haven't told either of them that I know. My best friend knows, and so does my therapist. They both told me to cut my losses, to confront them and move on with my life. But I don't want to do that. It's not enough. I'm not someone who gets angry easily, but this has flipped a switch inside me that I didn't even know existed. I feel so much anger, rage even, and it's not just sadness or betrayal anymore. I feel like I've been humiliated by the two people I trusted the most, and all I want is for them to feel the pain I'm feeling. It's not fair that they get to be happy while I'm left to suffer in silence. I want revenge. I don't care if that makes me a bad person. I want them to feel the hurt, the shame, the regret that I'm feeling right now. I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but I've started planning. Every time I see Rachel's face, smiling at me like nothing's wrong, it takes everything in me not to explode. She's so damn lucky that I have restraint and that I'm not typically a violent person. Otherwise, I don't know what I'd do. Luke's another story. I used to look up to him. He was my older brother, the guy I turned to when I needed advice or help. Now, he's nothing but a snake. He thinks he can get away with this, sleeping with my girlfriend, laughing behind my back, pretending like he's still my brother. But I'm going to make sure he regrets it. A few weeks after finding out about the affair, there was a family gathering at my parents' house. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to be in the same room as either of them. But I had to keep up appearances. If I suddenly bailed on family events, people would start asking questions. So I went, fully aware that Rachel and Luke would be there too. The moment I walked in, I could feel the tension. Luke was already there, standing by the kitchen, chatting with some relatives. Rachel arrived shortly after me, walking up to me and giving me a quick kiss on the cheek, acting like everything was perfectly normal. It was infuriating. I wanted to scream at both of them, to rip the facade apart in front of everyone. But I didn't. I kept my cool, smiling through gritted teeth as we mingled with family members. But then something happened that caught me completely off guard. As we were all sitting down for dinner, my mom made a casual comment about how close Luke and Rachel had become. "It's so nice to see you two getting along so well," she said, smiling. "You've really become like brother and sister." I nearly choked on my drink. Brother and sister? Was she serious? I glanced at Rachel, who looked like she was trying not to laugh. Luke, on the other hand, was staring at his plate, avoiding eye contact with me. For the rest of the meal, I could barely focus. My mom's comment echoed in my head, and I felt like I was going to explode. How could they sit there, pretending like nothing was wrong, while my family unknowingly made jokes about their disgusting relationship? The next day, I was at my breaking point. I couldn't hold it in any longer, and I didn't care about keeping up appearances. I needed to confront them. But I wanted to be smart about it. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing me break down. I wanted to catch them off guard, to watch their faces crumble when they realized they'd been caught. I decided to confront Luke first. I called him up and told him I needed help with something at my apartment. He agreed, probably thinking nothing of it. When he arrived, I was sitting on the couch, my mind racing with everything I wanted to say. "Hey, bro, what's up?" he said, walking in like nothing was wrong. I stood up, my hands shaking with anger. "How long?" I asked, my voice low and controlled. He froze, his smile fading. "What do you mean?" "How long have you been sleeping with Rachel?" I said, each word dripping with venom. Luke's face went pale. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He knew he had been caught. I could see the panic in his eyes. "I saw the texts," I continued, my voice tight with the anger I had been holding in for weeks. "Don't even try to lie to me, Luke. I know everything." For a moment, the room was silent. It was like the whole world had come to a standstill. I could see the gears turning in Luke's head, trying to figure out how to handle this. His usual cocky demeanor had vanished, replaced by guilt and fear. He swallowed hard and finally spoke. "Look, I didn't mean for this to happen," he stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. It just happened." I clenched my fists, fighting the urge to punch him right then and there. It just happened? That's the excuse he was going with? Like it was some sort of accident. Like they had just slipped into bed together by chance. "You didn't mean for this to happen," I repeated, my voice rising. "You didn't mean to betray me? To stab me in the back? My own brother?" Luke ran a hand through his hair, pacing around the room. "I'm sorry, man. I know I screwed up. I wasn't thinking. I was drunk, and one thing led to another, and—" "Save it," I snapped. "Don't you dare use alcohol as an excuse for what you did. You didn't just screw up once, Luke. This has been going on for months. Don't pretend like this was some one-time mistake. You've been lying to me, both of you." Luke stopped pacing and faced me, his hands up like he was trying to calm me down. "I get it, okay? I get that you're angry. You have every right to be. But please, don't tell Mom and Dad. Don't blow this up. We can figure this out, man. We're brothers. We can get past this." I stared at him in disbelief. Get past this? Did he really think I could just forgive him and move on like nothing happened? Like he hadn't completely destroyed my trust in him? "You think I care about what Mom and Dad think right now?" I said, my voice trembling with rage. "This isn't about them. This is about you betraying me, Luke. You slept with my girlfriend. You didn't just betray me as a brother, you betrayed me as a person." Luke opened his mouth to speak, but I cut him off. "You're lucky I haven't torn you apart yet. But don't think for a second that this is over. I haven't decided what I'm going to do. But when I do, you'll regret every second of what you've done." With that, I walked out of the apartment, slamming the door behind me. I could feel the weight of my anger pressing down on me, but I wasn't done. Not yet. Luke was just one part of this betrayal. The other half was still waiting, blissfully unaware that her world was about to come crashing down. I needed a few days to cool off before confronting Rachel. The anger inside me hadn't subsided, but I wanted to make sure I was calm enough to handle the situation without completely losing it. I'd already confronted Luke, and now it was time to confront the woman I thought I loved, the woman I thought loved me. When I finally confronted her, it was late in the evening. She was in the kitchen making dinner, acting like everything was perfectly normal. As I watched her, a sickening feeling twisted in my gut. She didn't know I knew. She had no idea that I had discovered her betrayal, that her secret life with my brother had been exposed. And part of me wanted to watch her squirm, to see the shock and guilt wash over her face when she realized her lies were crumbling down. I walked into the kitchen and leaned against the counter, watching her for a moment before speaking. "Rachel," I said, my voice steady. "We need to talk." She looked up from the stove, confused. "What's wrong?" I took a deep breath, knowing that once I said the words, there was no going back. "I know about you and Luke." Her face immediately drained of color. She blinked, trying to process what I had just said, her hands frozen on the stove handle. "Wow! What are you talking about?" she stammered, feigning innocence. "Don't lie to me," I snapped. "I saw the texts. I know everything." The room went silent as she stood there, her eyes wide with panic. For a moment, she didn't say anything. I could see the wheels turning in her head, trying to come up with an explanation, a way to worm her way out of this. I'm sorry," she finally whispered, her voice shaky. "I never meant for you to find out this way." I felt a bitter laugh escape my lips. "You didn't mean for me to find out? That's your excuse? Not that you didn't mean to sleep with my brother, but that you didn't mean for me to find out." She stepped toward me, her hands trembling. "I'm so sorry. It was a mistake. I was confused. And it just happened. It didn't mean anything." "Didn't mean anything?" I repeated, incredulous. "You've been sleeping with my brother for months, Rachel. How can you stand there and say it didn't mean anything? You've been lying to my face every day, pretending like everything was fine while you were sneaking around with him behind my back." Tears welled up in her eyes and she shook her head. "I never wanted to hurt you. I don't know what I was thinking. I made a huge mistake." I clenched my fists, my anger boiling over. "You didn't just make a mistake, Rachel. You destroyed everything we had. How could you do this? How could you betray me like this?" She started to cry, covering her face with her hands. I don't know why I did it. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I stood there, watching her sob, but I felt no sympathy, no pity, just anger and hurt. I had loved this woman. I had trusted her. And she had thrown it all away for what? For my brother? "I need you to leave," I said, my voice cold and final. "I can't look at you right now." Rachel's sobs grew louder as she pleaded with me. "Please, let's talk about this. We can work through it, I swear. I love you." I shook my head, disgusted. "You don't get to say that to me. Not after what you've done. Pack your things and go. We're done." Rachel left that night, her belongings packed into a hastily thrown together suitcase. But even after she was gone, the anger inside me didn't fade. It only grew. The betrayal was too deep, the hurt too raw. I couldn't just let them get away with it. Rachel and Luke thought they could betray me, lie to me, and walk away without any consequences. But I wasn't going to let that happen. I started thinking about ways I could make them pay. Maybe I'd tell the whole family what they had done. Let them feel the shame and guilt of having their dirty little secret exposed to everyone. Or maybe I'd find a way to ruin Luke's reputation, sabotage his career. He was a lawyer, after all. What would happen if his firm found out about the affair? I could destroy him. But as I plotted my revenge, I realized something important. None of it would make me feel better. Hurting them wouldn't take away the pain they caused me. It wouldn't undo the betrayal. It wouldn't heal the wound that was still fresh and bleeding inside me. I spent weeks in that dark place, consumed by anger and hatred. But eventually, I came to a realization. I couldn't let their betrayal define me. I couldn't let them turn me into someone I wasn't. a bitter, vengeful person. As much as I wanted to make them suffer, I realized that the best revenge wasn't ruining their lives. The best revenge was moving on, living my life without them, and finding happiness again. A few weeks later, I decided to meet up with Luke one final time. Not to yell at him, not to plot revenge, but to tell him that I was done. I needed closure, and I needed him to know that I wasn't going to let his betrayal ruin me. We met at a bar downtown, the same place we used to hang out before everything fell apart. Luke looked nervous as hell, like he was expecting me to punch him in the face the moment I walked in. "You're lucky I haven't beaten the shit out of you yet," I said, sitting down across from him. He nodded, not saying anything. "But I'm not going to," I continued, "because you're not worth it." Luke looked up, surprised. "I'm done with you," I said, my voice calm but firm. "You and Rachel can have each other. I don't care anymore. I'm moving on, and I'm not wasting any more time on you or her." Luke opened his mouth to speak, but I held up my hand. "Don't. Just don't. I don't need your apologies, and I don't need your excuses. We're done." With that, I stood up and left the bar, leaving my brother behind. As I walked out into the cool night air, I felt a strange sense of relief. The weight of the betrayal was still there, but it was lighter now. I had made my peace with it. I had let go. Rachel and Luke had taken so much from me, but I wasn't going to let them take my future. They could live with their mistakes, their guilt, and their shame. As for me, I was going to live my life.